Hello, my name is Alice, 18 years old this year. I know the story I'm going to tell later sounds crazy, but it is completely true. And that's really what I went through. A very scary, but also a very special experience. Maybe I will never forget that in my whole life. It all happened about 2 months ago. It was a boring weekend. I had to stay home alone as my parents had been traveling for the past few days to celebrate their 18th anniversary. In the midst of boredom, I decided to amuse myself by having a party at home and inviting my best friends over. After calling them, I left the house and went to the nearest convenience store to buy snacks and other things to prepare for the party. After a tour around the convenience store, I found enough things for myself, and my hands were holding a pile of things above eye level. It made it hard for me to see anything in front of me. As I was walking towards the cashier to pay, I accidentally bumped into a strange man. All the stuff in my hands spilled onto his body, causing the man to fall to the ground. I panicked, hastily picked him up. As soon as I saw him, that man had a very strange attitude. I found him even more panicking than I was. Not only that, but he also stared at me. At that time, I simply thought that perhaps he was just surprised when someone else hit him. I kept saying sorry and asking if the man was okay. He smiled, said he was fine, and helped me pick up the items that were lying on the ground. He was even kind enough to let me pay in advance. After paying, I smiled and gave the stranger a bar of chocolate as a thank you. I just smile as an act of kindness to thank others for helping me. But until now, I also cannot imagine that, just because that smile changed my life forever. That evening, the party took place. But contrary to my initial thought, from a small party with a few close friends, it suddenly became a big party with a lot of people attending. Somehow, each of my best friends invited a few more friends to the party, and then a few of them invited more. So my house became the venue for a whole high school party. They made a riot in my house everywhere. But I ignored it all because, after all, I've always liked the party atmosphere, and I told myself I'll be able to clear up all this mess before my parents come back, so I let the party go on. But I was wrong. I was completely stupid thinking I could cover up everything. Since I'd been partying the whole night before, the next day I was too tired to clean up. My parents came home at a time when the house was a mess. My dad furiously asked me to clean up immediately and left for my room. And my mother was like a barrel of dynamite being ignited, constantly yelling at me. Perhaps because she was too angry, she said some bad words. She said she was very disappointed in me. She did not want to see my face again if only this house would have been without me. When I heard that, I was really hurt. I know I made a mistake, but when my mother said that, my narcissism arose and I slammed the door while crying and ran out of my house. After spending the day in the streets, I started to feel hungry and tired. I called my best friend July, hoping she could let me stay for a few days until my mother stopped being angry. July agreed and sent me her home address. It wasn't too far from where I stood, so I decided to walk there. When I came to a deserted road, naturally in my heart there was a bad premonition. I felt like someone was watching me. I turned around when I spotted a car going very slowly behind me. My heart felt like I wanted to jump out. But then I reassured myself that nothing would happen. This is real life, not some horror movie that I often watch. I kept going forward. But then what I feared most happened. The faster my footsteps, the faster the speed of the car, the more it was trying to follow. I'm scared to run away. Suddenly, a large man came down from the car and grabbed me. One hand gripped me and the other covered my mouth. I struggled to escape, but that guy was too strong for me. The last thing I remember is something that hit me hard in the head and made me faint. When I woke up, the first thing I felt was that my head was in severe pain. There was a big wound on my forehead. But what alarmed me most of all was the fact that I found myself locked in a basement room. I started to panic, looking around for a way out. At that moment, from the side of the stairs came the sound of the door opening and the sound of footsteps approaching. I retreated to the corner of the room, cowering in fear. The kidnapper began to show his face. I couldn't believe my eyes. My kidnapper was the man I bumped into in the convenience store. It's crazy. Maybe just because of that, he kidnapped me. I apologized and he ignored it too. So why did he still do that? The kidnapper approached me and placed a plate of food in front of me. I begged him to let me go, but the man didn't seem to notice what I said. He turned and walked away. Taking advantage of that opportunity, I stood up, pushed my kidnapper down, and ran towards the stairs. But I only managed to run a few steps. He grabbed my ankles and pulled it back, causing me to stumble. Then he pressed on me, pulled a syringe out of my pocket, and injected me with some medicine. I was fading away. After a while, I woke up. I didn't know how long I had passed out because I was still only in that basement. But now I found out my hands were tied and my mouth was covered. The kidnapper sat there right in front of me. He covered the wound for me and said, "I'll take off the gag and give you something to eat, but don't scream, okay?" I nodded, agreeing with him. After removing the gag, I immediately asked, "Why are you arresting me?" The kidnapper said nothing, leaving the room. In my mind, I thought of thousands of scenarios and why that strange man kidnapped me. Is he a serial killer? A psychopath who likes to kidnap young girls to satisfy? Or is there another special reason? Finally, I found the answer to my question, and I'll tell you in the next part of the story. Hello, it's me again, Alice. Hope you remember my story. It is a story about a young 18-year-old girl kidnapped by a strange man. Yes, I know the story is crazy, right? But everything that happens has a reason for it. And the day I discovered that reason, it changed my life forever. Since I sneaked up on him last time to escape, the kidnapper was more careful. He tied my hands together and asked me to be quiet or he would cover his mouth with tape. In order to protect my life, I obediently obeyed my kidnapper. I was afraid that he would kill me if I disobeyed. But it seems that the kidnapper had no intention of harming me. Since the moment I was kidnapped, he had never beaten me. Even when I knocked him down to escape, he still lives, treats me gently, even bandaging the wound and giving me food. But I have always been wary of him, because I know that if he dares to kidnap me, he can harm me at any moment. I also became conscious of time. I don't know how long I've been here, because in this cellar there are no clocks and windows to look out into the open air. Around me are only 4 narrow and dusty walls. I started to feel hopeless. I missed my mother very much. If I hadn't been that stupid to host that party, this wouldn't have happened. I don't know. Are they looking for me? And what is the man going to do with me next? About an hour later, the kidnapper returned. This time, he brought in his hand a brown wig and a blue dress, placed in front of me and asked me to wear it. I was terrified. Now I was sure he was a pathological pervert about capturing young girls to satisfy his beastly. I do not know what to do. Tried to negotiate with him. I cannot do that. My hands are tied. All right, I'll untie you. I'll give you 5 minutes to change, then I'll be back, he ordered me. I reluctantly put the dress on according to his words. Exactly 5 minutes later, the basement door opened and the man returned. But the surprise is that as soon as he saw me in that manner, he froze, then burst into tears like a child, repeatedly apologizing. I can't understand what's going on. Something happened to this man, but I know this is a great chance for me to escape. When the kidnapper was crying hard, I rushed towards the stairs and opened the basement door and ran out into the living room. But when I got to the main door, I found it locked tightly, unable to be opened. When he turned back, the kidnapper was almost there. With no other choice, I ran upstairs and hid in the nearest room. I held a chair in the room to block the door. On the other side of the door, the kidnapper began to bang repeatedly on the door. As he pounded on the door, he called, "Jane, open the door, baby, open the door for Dad." I couldn't understand. The kidnapper kept calling me Jane and saying he was my dad. The sound of the door pounding became stronger and stronger, and I involuntarily stepped back, accidentally touching a nearby table, causing the photo frame on the table to fall to the ground. I watched the picture frame lying on the ground, startled to see the photo inside. It was a photo of the kidnapper, happily smiling next to a girl. And that girl is me. I mean, exactly like me. From the appearance to the face. She was wearing a dress exactly the same as the one my kidnapper gave me, and her hair resembled the wig. The kidnapper immediately fell to the ground. Seeing that he had no strength to fight back, I pressed on him, then began to question him. "Why did you kidnap me? Who is this girl? Why is she like me?" The man started to cry. He told me the full truth about why he kidnapped me. He did have a happy family, but his wife unfortunately passed away from cancer, leaving him alone with his daughter. Her name is Jane, about the same age as me now. 3 years ago, while taking his daughter out, He carelessly caused his car to crash down a cliff. He was lucky to survive, and Jane died soon after. He suffered greatly, tormenting himself for many years for causing the death of his daughter, until he saw me at the convenience store. I look exactly like Jane, even though I don't have any bloodline at all. Because he missed his daughter so much, that man thought I was Jane and decided to kidnap me. He just wanted to see his daughter once again and apologize to her, hoping she'd forgive his sins. When I heard that, my heart was very chaotic. I was both angry at the actions he did to me and at the same time sympathetic to the suffering man. After all, he was so pitiful. He was left alone in this world with a painful death torment. I decided to do an action. I couldn't believe I was doing it myself. I looked the man in the eye and said, "Dad, I forgive you, Dad," then left, leaving the man sobbing behind. I returned home shortly thereafter. I hugged my mother and apologized for my stupid actions. Mom also hugged me and apologized for the hard words. She was very worried when she could not call me. Even though I just went through something terrible, I didn't tell my mother, because a part of me forgave the kidnapper.